So you've got a paper to write. You've been told that you need to cite your sources in APA style, but some of the sources you used were written by a bunch of authors, not just one. How the heck do you cite those? Whose name goes first? Hi, I'm Sarah, and this is Writing Rescue, a videocast designed to help you write or maybe mark school papers in APA style, whether you're in university, college, or high school. Let's talk citing. First, make sure you've seen episode 1 of this videocast on the basics of citing. You can find a link at the end of this show or in the description below. Now, all of the examples that we used in episode 1 used a single author. But not all papers, books, and other materials that you cite will be written by a single author. Some of your papers will have 2, 3, or many authors. So, how do you do it? Let's start with 2 authors. Imagine that Rich Goyette, the producer of this show, and I wrote a paper in 2014. Rich was the main author, and I helped out on it. If you were to create a parenthetical citation to go at the end of a sentence, you'd do it like this: Goyette and Beck, 2014. Now, there are 2 things I want you to notice here. First, you don't put the names in alphabetical order. You keep the order that the authors used when they wrote the paper. When authors write a paper together, they usually decide who gets top billing. In terms of publishing, this is referred to as being the lead author. So, if you mess with the order of their names, you mess with their ranking. It's also confusing for the reader because every citation that you put in your assignment has to have a corresponding reference on the reference page. If you change the order to Beck and Goyette, that's going to look like it might be a completely different paper. So, what do? Keep the order the same as the authors listed when they published. Now, the other thing I want you to notice is the ampersand or and symbol. If you're using a parenthetical citation, you can use the ampersand. But this changes if you want to use a signal phrase. If we refer to the same paper but use a signal phrase, we could write something like this: according to Goyette and Beck, 2014, blah, blah, blah. Note that now the word and is spelled out. That's because it's part of the sentence structure. Yeah, I know it seems like a picky little detail, but this is APA style. Now, when you have a signal phrase, remember that you can leave the year off subsequent signal phrases, as long as the reader knows that you're still talking about the same paper. And remember that as soon as you have another parenthetical citation, you do have to go back to using the year again. You're never going to have just the names in parentheses without the year. Also, remember that once you've used the author's name in the signal phrase once, you can start using a pronoun. But in this case, make sure you use they or their because you're talking about 2 people. Okay, so that's 2 people. Now, what do you do if you have 3 or more authors? That's when we have to introduce a new term, et al. So, what is et al? It's a Latin short form, kind of like etc. or ie, which means that is. In Latin, ie stands for id est. Now, et al is short for et alia, which means and the others. There's a period at the end of al because it's a short form for alia. You don't need one after et because that's a whole word. And. So, if the paper was written by Goyette, Beck, Rintoul, Hunter, Meyer, and Hendry in 2015, you just cite it as Goyette et al. 2015. If there are only 2 authors, note that you don't get to use et al. You can't say and the others when there's only one other. And along those lines, make sure that if there are 3 or more authors, you just use et al. Don't try to get creative by saying Goyette and the others or Goyette and colleagues. Just Goyette et al. A couple more things. Remember that when you use et al., you're talking about a group of authors. So if you want to use a pronoun in a signal phrase, you have to use they or their. You can't just say he or she when referring to the first author, because that leaves out everybody else, and it could look like a completely different paper. And finally, remember that every sentence that contains someone else's thoughts, words, or facts needs to be cited in some way. You can't just put one citation at the beginning or end of a paragraph and assume that it covers everything before or after. That's a lot of citations, so be sure that you use a mixture of parenthetical citations and signal phrases to make sure that your paragraphs flow well. So that's the basics of citing when there's more than one author. There are lots of other details you need to know when citing in APA style, so check out our other episodes. Thanks for watching Writing Rescue. Good luck on your paper.